Hola! From Casa Cano, the home of coffee and pan Dulce. Our fabulous introducer today, Ruth, is out with a flat tire. How do you get those fixed anyway? Who knows?
You put air in there.
You put air. You gotta put air in your tire. Okay. Well, welcome to our show. This is the first show of August, the sweltering heat month, and we're going to talk about pride. We're going to talk about gun violence. We're going to talk about anything that crosses our sick little minds today. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to the master of the house of ill dispute, the very disputatious Chris Cano.
Hello, everyone. It's August the 7th.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, I'm just amazed. We just got to feel it July, now August. The kids are getting ready to go to school.
Yeah. Much to their dismay.
I know. I'm like,
yeah, the kids are all.
I can't thank you. I'm wearing my Moms About Action shirt because what we're going to be talking about is going to be talking about what they're trying to do. But we got a lot of very interesting topics to talk about. And Ruth is either going to be late or she may not show up because she has a flat tire. So we want to thank everyone for joining us. Well, yes, Alexa, stop.
We're sending you air for your tire. Everybody,
that's
send
right.
Air.
Everyone send
air for your tire.
The good vibes. I want to welcome everyone to Coffee and Pondusa. This is our 34th show.
Wow.
And we still have trying to get it right. I think we've done a very good job, and who knows? Yeah, you know. I mean, I think we've never missed a week.
The show looks like it's never even past 29.
Exactly. You know, with no makeup budget, it's incredible what we look like. I want to thank everyone for joining us on Facebook Live, but also the many people who watch us later on Facebook and also on YouTube. And so thank you so much for joining us. We have a very important topics we're going to be talking about today. Our guest is Jenny, who is going to be talking about Charlotte Pride. It's Pride Month here in Charlotte and in many areas. But obviously, it's important for us to talk about the events that have occurred this last weekend with the mass shootings. We're going to talk about that as well, and we'll see what else we talk about. So I want to thank you once again. I'm Christian Cano. We're going to go around. Everyone introduce yourself, and then so we can share our show, share our show to your friends, and then we'll salute to Coffee and Pondusa. We'll introduce our Pondusa for today, which is donuts. Manolo's Bakery is our new sponsor, and unfortunately we were not able to get to Manolo's Bakery yesterday, so we had to substitute Manolo's Bakery.
I'm so ashamed.
Yes,
you
should be.
I went there yesterday. I could have.
I should have known that. Yeah, I was not able. I had to go to Gastonia for some events or some dinner, and I wasn't able to get there. But anyway, we're gonna have a great show today, and so let's start from our right because you're always right.
Yes, I am. Hi, I'm Jenny Gunn. I represent Charlotte Pride and the National Organization of Women. I was the first transgender woman to be elected to the board in their history. And so it's exciting times in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's actually shocking.
Hi, I'm Barbara Bacon, and I'm a healthcare advocate here in Charlotte.
Alan Smith, vigilante politician extraordinaire. I'm the Green Party nominee for the North Carolina 9th District special election this year.
Excellent.
I was going to say that I was vigilante politician extraordinaire. You totally stole my line again. I can't believe I trust this guy. My name's Jeff Scott, man about town.
I'm Tera Long. I'm candidate for County Commission at Large. I'm a huge supporter of Jenny and the LGBTQ community, and hopefully I'll be walking with her in the parade.
Oh, excellent.
And I have a special guest as well.
Yes, introduce her.
So this is Sophia, and Sophia lived with us for almost a year and attended Hopewell High School as an exchange student. She is visiting us from Brazil. So I'm going to let her introduce a little bit more about herself.
Brazil. International flavor today.
Well, I'm an advocate in Brazil for human rights, and I love to be here.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, welcome to Charlotte, and or welcome back to Charlotte, and thank you for joining us. I know we were excited when we knew you were coming in town, We wanted you to be on the show so we can
He's
get your
excited to be
perspective.
here.
So, let's talk about our buttons very quickly. If we have a chance in 30 seconds or less, if you had a button or you wanted to talk about a button,
I have a built-in one.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I wore my National Organization of Women t-shirt. It has the rainbow on it. We are selling these for Pride. We'll be selling them during Pride and our event this Saturday. National Organization of Women is very passionate about the LGBT community.
Yes.
And I just also
Yes,
happen to have
yes.
and I was approached to join. So,
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. And my buttons are, of course, Medicare for All, which I'm passionate about. Need to impeach because I believe we need to start the impeachment process. But because of what's going on, I want to make sure that we understand that there are gun sense candidates that are running for office at the state, local, and federal level. And those are the type of people that we need to support, because those are the type of people that have gone on the record to say that they would have the courage to vote for gun sense legislation. Specifically, someone like Christy Clark, who I don't know if you know who she is. She's a state legislator and has gotten a lot of trolling. She was actually, I think this last weekend, they have legislative plates, and she was taking her son to school, and someone in her neighborhood saw her legislative slate, legislative plate, saw her, pulled up, and started shooting the finger at her and saying all kinds
license plate.
of profanity,
Wow.
and telling her, because she is a advocate for gun safety and so forth. And she was very scared, and the police are looking at that.
So
Yeah.
she got her start as a real community advocate
Yes.
in Moms Demand Action. So she
That's
was
correct.
an organizer before she got elected into office.
Yes, which is how I hope people do it.
Yeah.
To me, like I keep saying, to me that's the right way of doing it.
Absolutely.
To be involved in the community, to understand what the issues are, and then decide to run.
Yeah.
I love when we have people like that. So Jeff, what is your button?
Alan. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi, Alex.
Sorry, I got my glasses
Right to that.
and,
So my button, as always, is the North Carolina Green Party. We are an independent third party here in North Carolina. We have 4 key pillars. They are environmentalism, as many people know, but also social justice, grassroots democracy, and nonviolence. So if those are things that appeal to you, you should check out the Green Party.
Excellent.
My button is Julian Assange, who is still sitting in Belmarsh prison, and I'm opposing his extradition to the U.S., and I hope he ends up in Australia where he can be somewhat freer than he is today.
Okay.
Right. So my button is Be Smart, which is safe gun control. Okay, we want people to talk about, hey, if you're dropping your daughter off at a friend's house, are your guns locked up? Okay, just for safety. Let's have this as part of our dining room conversation.
I'm supporting Tera today, and
Plant.
what can I say? And also, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
It's human rights.
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. So let's go ahead and salute to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Everyone, hello. Salute, salute, salute. Cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
Oh,
No spilling.
my
No
Lord.
spilling
And
on the
once again,
technology.
since we weren't able to make it to our sponsor, Manolo's Bakery, which we will not make that mistake again since it's our sponsor, we do have donuts, which would be the American version of Pan Dulce. So please help yourself. We have all kinds, and we also have some great muffins that I want to try.
Woo, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
These are from the family of
I had one
the
before the
Bacons.
show.
And they just look healthy and delicious and moist and just good.
Good.
Yes.
They're really yummy.
So,
I already had one.
so thank you for doing that. So we've kind of thrown our script out today because we want to talk about these 2 issues. So let's go ahead and start. Jenny, Pride has started.
Yes,
I guess this is the de facto Pride Month for Charlotte. Is that right?
well, it is for a lot of
okay.
reasons. The one is that we have a really good corporate partner, or I guess city partner, and with the city of Charlotte, they allow us to do a huge event in the middle of Uptown. And we literally shut down a good portion of Tryon in Uptown, which is the major artery of Uptown.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we don't do it in June, there's two reasons. Which is the traditional national world Pride Month. That's what we know. That's when the riots happened.
Yeah.
Pride started as a riot. There were, two trans women of note, Sylvia and blanking on the other one. They did this as a protest of the way gay men were being treated, that they were raiding the Stonewall Inn. That there was so much about that. Now, flash forward 50 years later, now it's turned more into a party, a remembrance. We still have a lot of violence against trans and LGBT people. In fact, across the board, we've seen a 9% increase against LGBT people since Trump has taken office. In some places that were considered more accepting, it's gotten worse. It's gotten into the double digits. Places like Portland,
Wow.
that traditionally has been very accepting, especially for trans people. Seattle, we've seen a tremendous microaggressions, physical aggressions, sexual assault, and physical assault and shootings, including here in North Carolina. We've had 2 trans women murdered, one in North and one in the South.
There was one in Robeson County, I think.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
it was actually in District 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, it was in Congressional District 9 back in June.
Well,
But-
would you like us to
But
talk about our participation?
let's talk about Pride. One of my events, it's a personal project. It is sponsored by the National Organization of Women and the LGBT caucus of the Young Democrats for the whole state of North Carolina. We have it is a fundraiser. Actually, it's a fundraiser for the Latin American Coalition. So the proceeds from this, we've helped buy transportation passes so they can safely get to work and to stores without being harassed by having to walk.
Okay.
The majority of that population, the new arrivals and immigrants, cannot afford transportation like an automobile, which is very costly, and especially in North Carolina. So we're one of the entities that helps fundraise for that. We buy the passes, the Latin American Coalition distributes them. Very important program. So this is one of the reasons we're doing this. It's not just a celebrate Pride, even though that our entertainers is called Queerly Beloved, and they are an intersectional across race lines, across gender lines, across sexuality lines. They're amazing burlesque troupe. They do a very speakeasy style. It's very smooth. It's very
So it's a show that they'll be putting on.
we have a very elaborate show going on. And the nice thing is it's on August 10th. It is on the National Organization of Women's Facebook page.
It's also on the Pride calendar.
It's also on the Pride calendar. We were allowed to be put on the Charlotte Pride calendar.
Okay.
Even though we're not an official Charlotte Pride event, they have allowed us to be on there because they feel that this thing is so important. We also have multiple local candidates attending as well, including Tera.
Oh,
She's going to be there. She's going to be one of our
Come
main
meet me.
speakers. We've added a 6th one. We have, and I'm gonna read off the list from our website just to make sure I get everybody's name included. In fact, multiple ones from the LatinX community.
Oh,
so
excellent.
we have a nice broad representation, which I'm very proud of.
Are you gonna be there?
I wasn't aware of it. August 10th.
August 10th, this Saturday.
You need to get with her.
Yeah,
Are
absolutely.
you gonna be there?
This is the Saturday event? I don't know. I know
Think
there's-
about it.
Yeah.
Get with her after the show and
Yeah.
see if you can speak, because they're going to be speaking very briefly, right? About okay,
Just-
excellent.
We heard.
That's good.
Yeah,
I know
we're-
you have Jorge,
Well,
you have Jennifer De La Hoya.
Yeah, what the candidates are going to talk about is specifically about the LGBT community. So
Sure.
it's not a
Like a campaign type of thing.
Yeah,
it's more.
it's more of
We embrace you.
yeah. They're all what y'all would do for us as a candidate, as an elected official, how you would integrate that.
Yeah.
And then one fun fact about yourself. So
Sure.
so it's supposed to be light, it's supposed to be funny, it's supposed to be cute. It is a show for deal.
Sure.
So the candidates are going to go and speak in between the different acts. So
Oh,
we have
okay.
6 acts in the 6 spots in the first act and 6 in the second. So it's going to be very fluid, very fun,
Okay.
very easy. But we have
Timing, Jenny?
what
What time?
it starts at 6.
Okay.
The show begins at 6:40. The show actually goes on. Our doors open at 6. It's at the C3 Labs in South End, so it's in
Okay.
a beautiful venue.
All right.
And the actual
So there is a lot of entertainment on Pride weekend also,
Yes.
right? On August 17th
Well,
and 18th, they do have different
we have-
stages.
there's a
right?
we have a full phone app, so there is
The
you won't be
Charlotte
able to see it
Pride-
from here, but Charlotte
Yeah.
Pride now has an app.
You can download the
Have-
Charlotte Pride app if you go
Free of charge.
to it's Charlotte Pride on Apple or Google Play. Put in Charlotte Pride, download the app. It tells you the schedule, the tickets, everything that's going on.
Right.
It's a really neat app.
And they have a calendar. So what's
Yeah.
coming up from the 10th on? We have actually the 9th. So starting Friday, we have the Charlotte Pride Dog Day
Yeah.
at Freedom Park.
Yeah.
We have the Youth Pride Dance at the Time Out Youth Center for the young folks. We have Transforming Local News and the Gender Spectrum. It's at the UU, University Universalist Church. We have our show the night of the 10th. We have the Charlotte Pride Interfaith Service on the 11th at Caldwell Presbyterian. We have a Planned Parenthood event called Camp Get Real. It's all day on August 12th. The 13th, we have multiple things. We have the Pride Summit at Betty's Ford Regional Library. It says 2 a.m., but I think it actually is 2 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Charlotte Pride Trans Job Fair. So this is the first in Charlotte's history. We're actually going to have a job fair for the trans community.
Oh.
I helped create it with several other people in the community, including Kelly Barone that runs Transcend and is a trans woman and a very strong advocate for our community. It's phenomenal. It's being sponsored by Goodwill and Bank of America. It's at the Goodwill Center.
Okay.
It's also on the app. So, and it's open to all LGBT identities. So by far, it's the reason we titled it the Trans Job Fair is so that trans people and gender non-conforming people will know they can come as themselves. They don't have to pretend to be something else while they interview and apply for jobs. We have fabulous employers: American Airlines, Bank of America, just on and on and on. We also have a Charlotte Trans Pride Mixer at the Resident Culture Brewery that night at 6 o'clock. We have a drag trivia Pride kickoff at Petra's also that same night. We have a Whiskey Shtick Pride edition at the Single Barrel Room in Midwood on the 14th. Wind Down Wednesday.
There's a lot of
also
events
on the Wednesday. And then the biggest things are on the 17th and 18th. And there's more. I mean, I could sit here and read for an hour.
So the actual
Yeah,
festival,
absolutely.
the actual Pride Festival is Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and
And
Sunday.
the parade is on Sunday.
Yes, and we have hundreds
Yeah.
of vendors. We have a
All
diversity
kinds
of
of-
vendors. Whether
Which-
you're looking for a house of worship, whether you're looking for political contacts, whether you're wanting to know more about healthcare, we have an amazing deal of sponsors, including the National
Medicare
Organization.
for All.
Pretty much everybody
Yeah.
sitting
Yeah.
here is
Yeah.
involved with
Yeah.
those 2 days.
It's a really, really good event. For those, not to interrupt you, but
Yeah, no, go for it.
anyone who has never attended a Pride event, the Charlotte Pride event is special in its way because it is not necessarily like Atlanta or DC. It is, it's just a perfect size. It's not too big. It's not too overwhelming. You have a lot of floats in the parade, but they're more corporate floats and community floats. They're probably less go-go floats, even though there are going to be, some of those. So it's very. I would say it's family friendly.
Very family
Family friendly. It's a great place. I know the first time that I attended the Pride was the first time they brought the parade back, which is probably 5 years or 6 years ago. And I remember my church, Holy Trinity, we had a booth, and we had these young people who traveled from South Carolina. And I remember they came up to our booth, and we gave them some snacks and whatever. And they said that they had saved their money to afford gas to go there. And they were LGBT, and they just wanted to be They'd never been to anything like that. And it was really kind of emotional for me because I was like, wow, this shows you, even with all this celebration, much of what Pride does is validate to people that they are accepted
And loved.
and loved.
Yeah.
And
It's our
it is
family.
true. It is truly
it's our
for
adopted
many
family.
people who live in areas that maybe don't see that often. I remember first Pride parade I ever went to was in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
I sat there, saw the floats go by, and I saw a church go by. And as a person of faith, it hit me so hard to see people who were of faith saying, "I love you." And as a young person who had never been told that before, it was like I just started bawling. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, well,
so it was really wonderful.
Your
Yeah.
first Pride experience, especially as somebody that is
Yeah.
somebody like me or
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
that are out and we got rejected by our family a lot of times.
Yeah.
We get shut out by society. To have that love
Yeah.
is why we need these spaces and these
Yeah.
events, because a lot of times there is so much violence.
Yeah.
As somebody that is a hate crime survivor,
Yeah.
that I was assaulted 4 years ago.
Oh.
Actually in Pride Month,
wow.
I can attest to it's a scary world, and one of our deals is these family events. They're more like picnics. They're more like
Yeah.
a church picnic in a lot of ways, and people think it's like a Roman orgy or something,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
not. It's
yeah.
actually it's got kids up on stage singing and,
Yeah.
and churches singing, and we have arts and we have artisans and we have so much diversity. And one of the things that Pride is taking painstakingly hard effort this year is making every one of our events look like everybody.
Yeah.
Not just
The
white
old-
gay men up on stage.
Which used to
It
be
used to be that way.
just white gay men dancing.
We had a
know,
Latinx.
Yeah, now it's very diverse.
Arts
Yeah.
and performance thing this spring. Our film festival is extremely diverse now.
Yeah.
We want to make sure every intersection of our community is represented. Jerry and Matt have done and Daniel have
Yeah.
done a painstakingly hard job to do that, because a lot of times that's harder to find.
They're
And so
amazing organizers.
and I'm sending them love. I don't know if they watch the show, but I'll tell you what, I've been a part of some Pride organizations where I was on the outside looking in as
Yeah.
a trans woman. I've never had a doubt about these three guys.
Yeah.
And
Excellent.
they're amazing. So that's it about the Pride. Thank you, for indulging me and allowing me to talk about that. And if
Well,
you
thank
go
you.
on the Pride website, Facebook page, or
I'm
our
excited
app,
about Saturday's event.
Saturday's event's gonna be
We've
a
got a-
rocking event.
we've got a table,
We got
table
multiple
sponsor.
tables.
I'm trying to fill the
That
table.
I've got two
I
sponsors
if you
here.
wanna
I
go,
got-
I got
I-
6 seats.
We
We need to.
We rock the
Yeah.
house. It's gonna be
It's
fun.
gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
And it's
And the
it's
fact
first
that
of
I'm
its
leaving
kind.
the lake to go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So-
I know that you love me now.
I know. I do love you. You have some
Okay,
comments.
I do have some comments. I want to give out a shout to our friend Lynn, who's always watching.
Lynn!
I want to give a shout out to Ruth, who could not be here
Hey,
and misses
Ruth!
us, and we love her too.
Yes.
We miss her.
Hey,
Ruth.
I want to give a shout out to Steven. Steven, I'm the one who is actually driving this boat, so it's not Cano sending you kisses.
Sweet Cano
Sorry about that. I
kisses.
just deleted it.
Sweet Caroline.
Or is
dun,
it-
dun, dun.
Stephen writes, there will be a lot of people from Asheville
Oh,
coming
yeah.
down to
Yeah.
the Pride
Yeah.
Festival.
A lot of people from all around the state come here.
Let me make an added point that we know that this is a very big regional event, not just for the state.
Exactly.
People come up from Georgia, from South Carolina, from Tennessee, from West Virginia. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people
DC.
come to this event. Yeah.
Okay, and I also want to give a shout out to Tina. Tina has shared this in her community group.
Yay!
for us.
Thank you, Tina.
Excuse me.
And yeah, we've got some great people watching us today, and I want to thank everyone. But it's important for us to talk about Pride as a community. This is the second largest event in Charlotte, only second to race days, or the what is that called? Race days, the NASCAR thing. The
NASCAR.
Coca-Cola 500.
Race Street.
Race Street.
Race Street?
Yeah,
Race
yeah.
Street.
This is
So they
second.
shut down
This is the
Zion,
second biggest event that happens in Charlotte. So
Or
the
Speed Street.
Speed
Speed
Street. That's
Street.
what, yes,
Speed
Speed
Street.
Street. This is second only to Speed Street as far as people coming to this town and bringing commerce and bringing. It's bigger than the CIAA. It's bigger. It's bigger. It has been bigger than any event that we've had. So this is really an important economic contribution to our city. Plus, it just brings people together. I really like to bring the attention to the candidates and the elected public officials that support this, because there was a time where people who were elected would not walk in this, would not. There are cities that mayors would not walk in this and would not. They didn't want to be shown in this, and we do have a lot of candidates that understand now that hey, you know, this is. I think it's really good that we acknowledge that. The Libertarians have been there for many years.
That's right. Yeah. So just as a historical matter, you know, from the late '70s, when the party first came about, it was really part of this fever about self-identity and people coming out, whether they were women who were in very difficult situations, or you know, lesbians and gays who were feeling the effects of decades of you know, getting pushed out of federal jobs. I moved to San Francisco in the late '70s, and I feel a little bit like Jenny here. There are certain things I don't want to talk about because they, you know, it can be emotional to think about that period. Excuse me. Having said that, let me just go to the crass calculation for political parties, which is that there's a lot of people there. A lot of them are our natural allies. We have a great time there. I'm there 10 hours on the first day and then 6-7 hours on the next day. So I'm on my feet the whole time, taking breaks to grab an espresso, but I'm talking to voters and signing people up the whole time. And this year, I think we're going to try to have somebody from, you know, South Carolina, because we get a lot of libertarians from South Carolina show up there, and we haven't had an opportunity to help sign them up and put them on the voter registrar. But we've also got a really nice new, well-designed canopy.
I've seen it. It's nice. Yeah,
it's very nice. So
But
please come by. We'll have fans. We'll
Sure.
have the rainbow porcupine fan this year. That's our swag, so you can cool yourself off while you're walking down the street.
Excellent. And Green Party, how do y'all are in this, right?
That's right. So we'll have a booth there as well. I'm not exactly sure where our booth is going to be located, but we'll be there. We've been there for several years, at least longer than I have lived in Charlotte. So the Green Party's been involved in Pride for a long time. We know that it's a fun event, and it's important to us because we stand for those things too.
Exactly.
And we have for a long time.
And there are many local candidates. Alma Adams will be there. She has always had a car in Pride. Usually our mayor, our people who are running support. I know when I ran for office, we had a booth and we ran. We walked in it.
Lawana Mayfield she came by our booth last year.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people, and there are going to be some people that do not show and participate in Pride. And once again, I
wanted to say one quick thing.
Go ahead.
Too. At the benefit show, our featured speakers is Allison Dahl. She is from Raleigh, and she's an NC House 11 representative. So she actually is
excellent.
She's also married to a woman. She's openly lesbian.
Okay.
And that's the reason why she's our featured speaker. She came here on behalf of the LGBT caucus of the Young Democrats. So she's making the trip all the way down just to speak to us. So it's a huge, huge win for us. Jorge Millars, City Council at Large, Tera Long, County Commission of Mecklenburg at Large, Jordan Pinata, CMS School Board, Gabe Cartagena.
Is it Pineda?
Pineda, I'm sorry. I'm not real good at pronouncing the names. I don't want to butcher any name. Jordan Pineda, Gabe Cartagena, City Council District 4. And then we've had one added since that went out to the group. And let me double check. She was verified last night.
Jennifer,
You said Jennifer?
Jennifer Delahoy. I think she's on vacation.
Jennifer is on vacation, but
But
it's
someone's
Gina
gonna be here.
Narvet.
Oh,
Oh,
yes, I
Gina.
love
City,
Dr.
Gina
Gina.
is City
City Council
Council 6.
Yes.
6, that's right,
Six.
that's right, that's right.
Mel confirmed her, the president now confirmed her
no.
yesterday.
Excellent.
So she, and any other candidates,
Yeah.
if you guys want, if you come and, you
But
know.
it's both now and LGBTQ.
Yeah.
So you have to support them both.
So once again, we say this all the time on this show, whether you're running for city council, whatever position you're running for, and we say it more often about District 9 because you're running and you're running as well, that it's really important for us to see our candidates when they're applying for the job. And one of the things that I like to see is when those candidates show up for the job interviews. And this is a job interview process. And for us to see them out in the community, for us to see them, because, you know, I say this before, and I know I'm going to say it over and over again, it's the only way you can understand the challenges of a community is to actually show up and listen to that community. Regardless of what you say, that is the only way you can do it. If you don't show up, you
don't know. How can you learn?
You don't know. I mean, just to be able to face someone in person and to listen to what they have to say. And we do have candidates that don't show up. And I have to always maintain my anger because I get so angry when I see candidates that don't show up, but yet they try to champion certain issues, and I'm like, well, I've never seen you before, and how can you champion this issue? So with that said, last Thursday, the Black Political Caucus had a candidate forum, and a lot of our wonderful candidates showed up, and I want to give them kudos for showing up because the Black Political Caucus is a very important,
Very powerful.
very important group
That
to
was
get
an awesome
there.
event,
It was
too.
important. We did have Jessica Davis, who came to our table. We had a Republican who I actually am going to support. Her name is Victoria Naziski. I believe it's how do you pronounce that last name? She's going to be running against she's going to be running against Ed Driggs in a primary. She is a Republican, and I think that's healthy to hear her point of view as well. There were so many other people that I mentioned.
To be fair to Cano, because Cano gets in trouble for Republicans, there is no Democratic challenger in this race.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
you have to pick a Republican if you're going to vote.
And that is my district. And so since unfortunately our county party chairperson did not get anybody to run, and we should never have a race that doesn't have a Democrat running. But but for whatever reason, our county party chair decided there were a couple of races that they didn't want to bother with, and that's not a strategy you should ever have as a party chairperson.
No,
So
and
we only have.
let me point out that I made the exact same mistake because 2 years ago, both Steve and J.D. Fiore and myself ran for at-large, and I ran in a very crowded field, including a crowded field of Republicans. So there was really no chance for him to win in the general, and then I ran against a very strong Republican candidate in District 6. But he's got no opposition in District 6. No, I take that back. He's got Democratic opposition.
Gina,
yeah. But Ed has no Democratic opposition.
So their primary.
So I made the same mistake as well.
So their primary, we will have a primary in my district, which is District 7,
Yeah.
but it will be a Republican primary.
Right.
I can't vote in that because I'm a Democrat, but if you are a Republican or if you're unaffiliated, you can vote in that primary.
Right. So remember,
So-
let me just put in a plug for the night of August 13th.
Yes.
Ring the bell
Yes.
if you want to ring the bell.
Yes.
Sorry.
The night of August 13th,
Okay.
we're having a forum at William R.
Yes.
Davey Center in,
And do you have
South
people
Charlotte.
who's going to be there? Do you?
Well, we sent an invitation
Sure.
out, and they're coming in. And I asked Ed Driggs and
Sure.
Tarek to come, and they confirmed to me verbally, but I expect that there were 2 Republican primary candidates will be there for
Okay.
District 7, and then the Democrat and Republican who are running in District 6 will be there.
Yeah. Good.
And of course, Alan and I will be there, and we continue to beg the McCready campaign. We continue to beg the Bishop campaign if they can't send somebody, if they can't show up themselves, because they've got some alleged conflict, then they should be able to send somebody who can speak on their behalf. But otherwise, it's just going to be Alan and I representing 9th District issues and 9th District voters having a knockdown, drag-out fight like we have every Friday. I'm still recovering. Still recovering from the fist fight we had last week. It was terrible.
Medicare for
It was
all,
terrible.
not so Medicare for
Fist
all.
fights.
Well, you know, one of the great things about being able to look at these elections from the outside this time around is the interesting way I can see the strategies of how people are running their campaigns.
Yeah.
And you know, we know Dan Bishop is running to the base. He's running these almost silly kind of
The whole RNC. That's right. They're doing the whole. They're doing that for the whole Trump campaign. The crazy clowns.
And
stuff.
even though, as a Democrat, I think it's silly.
Yeah.
But like I said, their strategy is to not worry about you, me, or whatever.
That's right.
Their strategy is to get their people out to vote because they know it's going to be a very low turnout, and all they want is win.
That's right.
That is really what they're trying to do. Everyone else is running different types of strategies. The Democratic nominee is running commercials about health care. He's doing a public education thing, which is.
I don't understand it, but anyway.
But that's that's the strategy they're using, and Andrew and I got postcards, this is the Dan McCready campaign hired a very, very expensive consultant from California that told him, because they did such a bad job the first time they ran, how to win the second time. And their whole goal is to touch 3 to 4 friends of all of their supporters. That's their goal.
Yeah.
So we got these postcards from someone. I think they violate the Federal Commission, but that's not for me to file the complaint. That would be someone from Dan Bishop or one of y'all to file.
Yeah.
Because basically it says, "Hi Andrew, they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
Your voice needs to be heard on September 10th. Our representatives needs." And it's exactly his platform: protect healthcare, support public schools, put people before politics, which is like the country over politics. Go to NCMB to find out where you vote. Early voting starts. Together we can do this. Thanks.
Right.
So they come across as bipartisan.
As get out the vote.
And
we just want people to vote in general.
So there's all these get out to vote groups: the progressive get out to vote group, the indivisible groups.
That's right.
They really are working for Dan McCready.
That's right.
Because they all have the exact same stuff. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't tell you who pays for this. It doesn't say, I don't know how they get around it, maybe because they don't mention anyone's specific name.
I know. That's dark money in politics.
It's dark money.
Right?
It's exactly dark money. And I also find it very interesting that the Dan McCready commercials that are occurring, that are being sponsored by this other group, and it has...
I don't take corporate money.
You have 2 choices. Dan McCready, military, this. Dan Bishop, this. All of the footage is exactly the same footage from the Dan McCready commercial.
Yeah.
So it can only be 2 reasons. He gave him permission to run it, or they have it.
Right.
That's illegal.
Right.
Someone has to file a complaint.
Yeah.
Someone has to, do those kind of things. And then the latest commercial, which is one of his big supporters, who I blocked on my page.
Yeah.
She's one of the McCready creeps, as I like to call them.
Yeah.
She has the commercial where her and her husband had a baby, and she says, and we came out of the thing, and we had a $8,000 bill. This. And Dan Bishop voted for this. That has nothing to do with her bill.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with her hospital bill. That's more Medicare for all type of issue. But so they're trying, and they've got the little baby, and my family can't afford Dan McCready.
So we know going into the last 4 weeks that we're getting into a period where there's just a lot of ridiculous persuasiveness and irrationality, and everybody hates this period. A lot of people tune out completely because they don't like it, and then they wait. Some people wait till like the night before, and then they start Googling stuff, and they go, "Who am I going to vote for?" A lot of these elections are really decided in the last week or 2.
Yes.
Right? So it's going to get continually crazy. It's going to get fever pitch. Everyone's gonna hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Alan and I are gonna be drinking like fish
Mhm.
the week before just to say, oh God, I hope
Drinking
this
water
thing
for
is
Alan.
over with.
I guess what my point behind all of these examples is I just find it very interesting that the goal of, it seems like right now, the Republican and the Democratic, all they're doing is attacking each other, trying to say, I'm not this person, I'm not this person. And I'm getting all of this stuff, but I'm not getting anything from Dan McCready or Dan Bishop saying, this is what I'm gonna do in Congress. And that is what we all hate about politics, is they tell me things about other people, but not about what they. So I would rather not get any of this,
Well, Dan,
and then see Dan McCready show up for Pride and tell me I'm gonna fight for LGBT rights or something like that.
I want Dan McCready at Pride too.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But thank you for what you're doing.
Sure.
Thank you for what you're doing. So let's talk about what's going on. You have something?
Oh, well, we do, Ruth Road End, Tuesday, August 27th.
Yes.
Meet and greet with the Latin Chamber.
Yes.
At Beth Temple,
Yes.
5101 Providence Road.
well,
But I also want to make sure that we're transitioning to the,
Yeah.
we were going to talk about the gun.
Yes.
And I
So
would love for Sophia to like talk a little bit about maybe violence in Brazil and compare what we're experiencing in Brazil.
that let's talk about what's been going on. The president today is going to visit El Paso and Dayton.
Toledo.
Toledo.
Even
Yeah,
though they didn't
that's
want
right.
him to come.
Yeah, and people don't want him to come. I watched a little bit of his comments before he got on the airplane, and he's, he just, I don't know, it's just so crazy.
You punish yourself by listening to him,
But
don't you?
yes, I do, and every time I listen to him, he's so disconnected with reality. They asked him, how do you feel about this, and he said, well, the shooter in Dayton was a Bernie Sanders supporter and was an Antifa person. We hear that from this. It's like this innuendos he throws out there because he doesn't want to admit that his own words are what they're quoting. They quoted the gentleman who went to El Paso, quoted him saying, Hispanics are invading Texas. Hispanics are taking over Texas. I want to stop that. Those are exact words from his own stump speeches. And he can't say, he's just not, that doesn't have the mental capacity to say, what I've said probably is not the best thing to say in a climate where you have people who are not maybe all there and who see fear and who may be underemployed or whatever the case may be, and that fuels this particular event really impacted me Saturday more than I thought it did. Mainly because the words of the manifesto that he posted 20 minutes before he attacked the Walmart and stuff was specifically targeting LatinX Hispanic people. I've never had that before. We've had people who have attacked Muslims or gays,
African Americans.
So as a sort of, I say this in me as a person who lived through the AIDS crisis, and being so grateful I survived when so many young precious people did not survive. To have to go through this again, it's just like
Okay, to give them some background on that.
Sure.
So Cano was married to Andrew, and they were dating in what year?
for a long time.
Yeah, but during the AIDS.
Well, I met him after that. The AIDS crisis, I lived through that. It was late 80s, early 90s, and I joined a group called ACT UP, and we were out there demanding better just testing and
drugs.
Yeah, drugs, trying to get drug speed
Right.
through and so forth. But during that time, there were people that, and even I did not know in the early days if touching someone would transmit. There were things like, you don't want to, I may have had family members who are afraid to kiss me because they may have thought the saliva would have given them that or whatever. And so there was a time where you got tested, but you didn't find results out for like a week.
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, and you live that 2 or 3 weeks going, what happens? What am I going to do? And you just live in fear, not knowing, and then you got the results. You were like, oh my God, and then you feel guilty because there are people who, there are people who.
No, it was a death sentence.
Yeah.
When you got tested positive.
Yeah.
At that time in health history, it was just it was weeks, sometimes days.
Yeah.
At the most months. Like people were not living more than 6, 7, 8 months, a year, for the majority. Like there was a few, and then then they developed drugs and started talking more about prevention, which did not happen in the 80s because of the Reagan administration and their refusal to say just say no.
Yeah.
And
so there's
and,
so there was a lot of things, I think,
Very political.
but this was really just for me personally, it really impacted me. And then of course the Dayton, Ohio thing happened, so we had that back to back, and it just, there's sometimes, and I think all of you guys who are involved, and sometimes you just go, God, it's just like so overwhelming, and it's like, and then you just gotta like rejuvenate yourself and go, okay, we gotta fight for something.
The sad thing, Art and I were out, and his phone beeped, and he goes, oh my God, there's been another shooting, and here we are walking out of a Walmart, and we both went, oh my God, and I got the chills. And somebody walked by and said, oh, there was another one, blah, 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 and I'm like, another one? How can you be so blasé? People just died.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, get me started, And it's
So,
just,
what we want to talk about is violence in America, what we need to do about that, and we started late, we got about 15 minutes left on the show, but as a person a Brazilian, when you look from your perspective to America, what do people, what are your thoughts about what we're going through? What are y'all seeing from the outside?
Start with also the demographic difference, because you're from a much larger city.
Yeah, I'm from the metropolitan area of the city I live in is 24 million people.
oh wow.
So it's
Small city.
In comparison to our 1 million.
yeah, which I mean makes it a more violent place too. But we had one school shooting in Brazil in our late years recently, but it's really crazy to see how these things are happening in America, in the U.S., in such a developed world, and nothing has happened to put a stop in it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's been happening for so long. I mean, Columbine was when?
Yeah.
And right,
Yeah. So people
it's
who are looking
impressive.
from the outside, do y'all just think that it's the Wild West here?
No.
Are y'all confused on?
A little bit sometimes.
Are y'all confused on why we can't?
No, I think one thing that we talked about when I got here is that we know everything that's happening here. So we have when something happens here, we got the news right away. And so we know about all the shootings every time it happens, all the follow-ups and everything. And I think people just think it's crazy because you're, what, I've heard just 200 in the last year?
256.
256 in the last year. And that's insane. And I come from a very violent city. I mean, Brazil has the biggest pride parade. São Paulo, my city, has the biggest pride parade in the world. But at the same time, we have the highest rates of murder against LGBT people, especially trans.
Yeah.
So I come from a very violent place. Brazil is a very violent country, and still we are very shocked at what happens here. And so that's just to see like the degree of insanity that this is.
Can you explain what it was like going through CMS and having to go through all the drills?
Oh yeah.
She and I had lengthy conversations about why she had to go underneath desks and stuff like that.
Yeah, we had, I mean, lockouts and drills every month. And it was very crazy because that doesn't even cross our minds in Brazil and in the place I come from. And it was an experience. I was here during the March of Our Lives, the Florida shooting, and that was very interesting to see because I think it was a big movement. that started,
Mhm.
and I was part of that.
Well,
And never, yeah,
well,
never did.
well, we do know that recent polling that occurred, I think yesterday or the day before, shows now that 67% of Americans want our Senate to approve the extended background checks, and that is Republicans and Democrats. We also know that there are a growing amount, I think it's in the 50s now, who want the assault weapons ban reinstated. So we do know that polling shows that Americans want gun sense reform, so to speak. It just has not been able to translate for some reason from the political standpoint, and that's maybe something you guys can talk about. And you know, my theory is, well, I don't know. I mean, does anybody have any? Why we can't move that needle forward? Why is it that we know we got to do something, but we just don't do it?
Because the politicians are getting paid.
Okay.
The NRA.
And
So,
what is
okay.
the influence of the NRA still?
Okay.
You know, you hear all these rumors
Yeah.
that they're going bankrupt, and they sure lost a lot of contributors.
But he's not under the NRA.
No, I don't support them as a lobbying group. They don't.
But he also does not support gun legislation.
That's true.
So it
Yeah.
so it's more than that.
That's right, because we,
Yeah.
let me say a couple things, first of all, that I think Alan and I agree on, and that is, it's a very violent world. We're in a very violent country.
But so is Brazil.
But what we're doing around, Brazil is not an empire that's got 1,000 bases in 80 countries and is killing a lot of brown people all over the world every day. So, Americans are very blasé to the violence that we're inflicting in the world. I think that you can't really even talk about this issue without relating it to the way that we treat other people in the world. And that's the martial mentality. So
Yeah.
Alan, you haven't spoken a lot, so go ahead, because I know you agree with what I just said, but feel free to elaborate your own points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm in agreement here. I think that we need to separate the issue out, right? Because on one side we have our gun laws, and yes, we need to address our gun laws. We need to do something about just this ocean of guns that we have in our country, right? We also need to address the social conditions that cause people to commit crimes with guns, the social conditions that cause people to hurt themselves and other people. We can't do just one or the other. We have to do both at the same time. Now, with that in mind, we also have to look at gun violence as the individual. We need to break gun violence apart, I guess you could say.
Sure.
Because we have a huge number of gun violence deaths in America every year. But what people often don't do is they don't look into that number. We just assume that 40,000 that we hear in so many stats is related to school shootings or it's related to mass shootings, and it's not necessarily true. A lot of those gun violence deaths are suicides.
Yeah.
A lot of those gun violence deaths are perpetrators of domestic violence who are killing their partners.
Which to your point, we have a comment from Scarlett. You
Yeah,
wanna read
absolutely.
That one later? Because I think it's very important.
Absolutely, good segue. Text checks to 644-33 to reach your senators. Text events to 64433 to find the Moms on Demand actions. Thank you, Scarlett. You're one of my heroes.
And this is one of the reasons why I think, regardless of how we feel about guns and so forth, there are certain realities in America that we expect, I think we expect from our elected public servants. We expect them, we've had these conversations all the time. We expect them to call out racism. When racism happens, we expect them to say it's wrong. When sexism happens, we expect them to say it's wrong. When I call someone something that's probably not appropriate, we expect them to call me out, and they do. So that is almost just like a CEO of a company. When there's something that occurs within that company, you expect that CEO to apologize on behalf of the company. That's leadership. And so I guess what I'm saying is that we expect, and I know you don't agree with it because you and I have these conversations,
Yeah.
but we expect comments from those who are running for office to tell us, because these are raw emotions. People have been killed, and we want leadership. We want people to say, just as the people who follow Trump like him to say it's mental illness, it's video games. Yeah, he said it. That's us. Those who believe in gun sense legislation and gun safety and getting rid of assault weapons, I want someone who represents me to say we gotta take this seriously. We gotta look at this. We gotta move this forward.
Okay. So let me make 2 points, then
Yes.
I'll hand it over to anybody else. One is that I disagree on the leadership thing.
Okay.
I think that when politicians try to front run,
Sure.
that they're being, in many cases, like Trump or whoever else you wish to name, they are being crass and uncouth.
But that's what people want.
Well, no, I think they're doing a disservice, because I think it's time for when these things happen, it's time for religious leaders and philosophic leaders and people with moral capacity to set the tone and to kick the politicians out, because they're the ones that have to sit and deliberate and weigh all these interests behind the scenes. We don't want to be crafting legislation during hysteria. So remember the Patriot Act, the worst law in the last 25 years. In light of 9/11, it was passed pretty immediately over the objections of one good Democrat, Barbara Lee, who I was living in her district at the time, actually. No, I wasn't, because I was in San Francisco and she was in the East Bay. But Ron Paul was also spoke out against it. So there are a few people that said, no, in this hysteria, we can't write a blank check to the authorities to create this Department of Homeland Security to go after all of these people who are, because you're not with us, you must be against us, and create that mentality for the country. Look what it's done. I think that if we try the same thing now, the same thing is going to happen. We do not want to. We're going to read the Second Amendment, and we're going to talk about the restrictions that are placed on the government against it being a police state, so that it can engage freely in Stonewall type discrimination and attacks on people just living freely.
So what I'm hearing is that those right now, people out here who want stronger gun sense legislation, whether it's in the form of stronger background checks, closing loopholes, getting rid of assault weapons, you're saying that you would not vote for that if you were in Congress?
I would not vote for registration. I don't really even know what an assault weapon means. I think it's just a sort of a term of art. But no, I'm a strong Second Amendment advocate. I believe people need to protect themselves. If you're really afraid of the police, and people have very good reason to be afraid of the police, whether they're gays or lesbians, whether they're African Americans, whether they're Hispanics, whether they're, whatever marginalized group they are, they need protections. When civil order breaks down, marginalized people are going to be hurt the most. They're the people who are going to need guns to protect themselves.
And as we said, and we didn't do it, we're going to put up all the four faces of people who are running for the 9th Congressional District. Whenever we have an issue, we're going to put whether they would vote for it, whether they would not vote for it. And let's just imagine we have all four of the faces. We do know that Dan Bishop would not vote for gun sense legislation. You're saying that you would not vote, so you also would be a no. Would you vote for it?
I would, and can we break that down as
Yes,
well?
yeah, that's fine.
So
Because I know it's not
right, yeah, I mean it's
black
very,
and white.
right?
It's different,
So I'm in support of banning the sale of assault weapons, and I agree with Jeff too. I think that to give it this broad definition of assault weapon, so to define that, I'm talking about military style, semi-automatic, high-capacity rifles that nobody needs in their home, nobody needs for hunting deer, nothing like that. These are the types of weapons that we don't need on our streets.
But military weapons are already illegal. We do know that.
Right. So fully automatic weapons are illegal. But I also think that these military-style weapons are things we don't need. Other gun sense legislation, I want to revise the 1033 plan, which is the program in the federal government that allows the federal government to transfer military-grade equipment to local police agencies. So I want to revise that so we're not putting weapons of war into our local police agencies as well.
Absolutely.
That's one thing that we can do. Background checks. I think most people support the background checks, closing the gun show loophole.
Being able to, if you have a family member who you think may not be all there, being able to challenge them in court to have their gun taken away temporarily until they get over their domestic violence thing or something. Shannon Klug, Moms Demand Action, had talked about that legislation. So we've got Dan Bishop would vote no, Jeff Scott vote no, Alan Smith would vote yes, and then Dan McCready. Does anybody want to talk on his behalf?
No. We wouldn't know.
My understanding is, and if you're out there and you're a Dan McCready follower or fan, what I have seen from what he said over the last 2 weeks and the last 3 years.
Okay.
So this is not, he says he wants gun sense legislation, which means nothing to me.
What does that mean?
It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really mean anything. But we do know that he will not vote against, he will vote no against banning assault weapons. So there are 3 people running for office on this issue. There's many issues that would vote no, and only 1 person would vote yes. The reason I think this is very important is because I think it's really important. It seems like if I were any of those individuals, there's a very large percentage of people who live in our district that are very pro-gun. They're going to, no matter what you say, they're going to support, and we see them on social media. And then there are people who are very, look at gun sense legislation. I don't understand why, and I thank you for doing that, because you're not going to win those those people that are supporting Dan Bishop, and probably you, aren't going to vote for
No,
you.
I don't get votes from those people. I really don't.
Well,
It's a loser for me, absolutely. It's a loser to stand up on this principle that we don't want to give the government too much power to take away people's guns.
So I don't
Amazingly enough.
But what I do appreciate from y'all, and I'm concerned about the other 2 candidates, is y'all that at least attended a Moms Demand Action event or have taught or embraced the conversation of Be Smart education. The other 2 candidates in their entire campaigning years and have never even had the courtesy to attend 1 meeting, haven't had the courtesy to sit down and listen to the Moms Demand Action people, listen to the Be Smart program. And to me, that is, I don't understand that, because how can you tell me you're going to work across the aisle, you're going to talk to people when you don't even do it when you're campaigning?
I'm with Cano on this. I think you have to be present and listening to your constituents, and I think that's important for anybody who's considering running for election.
And there are many other issues.
Do you have anything to add for this conversation?
I can't speak for Dan McCready, but sitting in other Republican things, I mean, they're just so pro-gun, and that's all they say. I'd really like to know why and what it means, and we did talk about inviting a Republican to sit down and discuss this with us, because I really don't understand their position.
Let me ask you a question, because as a mental health professional or advocate, you're looking at these proposals for red flag laws, right? And I find them overreaching. The idea that somehow the mental health community can predict crimes. Do you have any anything to add to that?
I don't think that's the position. It's the fact that all these people with mental illness were just dumped on the streets, and having been briefly involved in that in the county, trying to find out more about it, I got stonewalled and told just butt out. I think that if we had better tools to evaluate people, and it needs to start with the families. They have involvement. If they're ostracized from their family, it's no help. But if you're not going to get support from the government, you're not treating them in normal medical communities, then it's got to start with the family. And the families need to be educated. But how do you educate them when nobody will really tell you what they need? And we're at a stalemate here, and
I've got a couple of things, and it's based off what Alan said, actually. And one of my main issues is that politicians always talk about, especially on the more conservative side, they talk about individual responsibility. And the gun laws and all that is more the same. So really, to be a true equitable society, we need corporate responsibility, we need government responsibility, and we need individual responsibility. You need those three pillars to have a true safe society to where we all can live together. That's basic sociology 101. So my biggest issue is that the corporations and the government are not addressing this on more fronts. Healthcare, including mental health, and treating it like an actual disease. Mental health needs support in whether corporations fund it, whether the government forms it, whatever. We need to take it serious.
100% on her.
We need to also lower our violence culture, especially against women. We have an extremely violent culture towards women. Rapes are up double digits across the board, not just since Trump has been in office, but in the last 20 years. We've had an increasingly violent approach to everything. Everything is war on the drugs, war on this, war on that. We killed 500,000 people in the war for profit after 9/11. 500,000 people, and none of them, except for one, was the one that had anything to do with it. So we went around all these countries that had nothing to do with it and killed 500,000 people. When those service people came back, we took them from a military life to a civilian life and said, you did all these things and you did it for the service of your country. Now come back to society and be normal. It's okay. You didn't see any of that. And as a daughter of a special forces officer that fought in Vietnam and has a Purple Heart and all that, I can tell you, war F's you up.
Yeah,
it does.
It does in ways that, and we have to stop invading countries now. We need to take that money that we're spending on the military and use it as a peace dividend and spend it on health care, including mental health, especially for returning service people. No matter what they've seen, no matter what job they did, no matter what MOS they had, we need to heal this country before it's too late. We have a violence culture, period. There's no way of arguing that. You can look at every stat across the board, and there is violence rampant, whether it is domestic violence, whether it is not just a one deal. It's not just kids going out, young adults going out and buying AK-47s and shooting up schools. 52 women a day get murdered in this country in a domestic situation. 52 a day. That's what the Wear Orange movement's about.
Wear orange.
Yes.
Intentional today.
So it's a multi-front deal. We do have to have responsibility from those three pillars of society. Individuals need to say, you know what? It isn't just gun control. I do agree with Jeff, painfully. I don't think...
I knew it was going to hurt. I told you it was going to hurt.
It went to the bowels of my soul. I can tell you, I almost threw up those 2 donuts I forked down. But I will say, banning guns is not going to end our violence problem.
That's right.
It's not. We don't need a knee-jerk reaction like the Patriot Act and all those other deals. We lost a ton of civil liberties.
That's right.
We signed away some stuff, and we signed away the most important thing, which was spot checking the commander-in-chief. So we've had 3 commander-in-chiefs in a row that have been pro-war, including Obama.
That's true. That's true.
And these drone strikes and all this.
That's right.
That affects our society. We're a reflecting image of the violence that we put out into the world. Not only do we radicalize the world, but we're radicalizing ourselves that violence is the solution. Put them away for 100 years. Do this. It's all violence. We have 3 million people incarcerated right now in this country. So
That's
jails and prisons aren't a solution either.
No, I'm in total agreement with Jenny that on this topic that we are in a violent culture, and if we don't talk about gun sense in the context of what everything else is going on, these fatherless homes, these fatherless families, where a lot of these kids are coming from.
Well, to be fair, there is a comment that was made that we want to clarify Dan McCready's position.
So, and I know Erin Lee
we're all thrilled.
considers herself very close to Dan McCready, and she's a strong advocate for him. She writes, McCready is in favor of closing gun show and online loopholes that allows guns to be in the hands of domestic terrorists, domestic abusers, and people with mental illness. that is awesome to hear you say that. But we also need to plug in that we need health care to treat people with mental illness. The big problem in America's guns is that we do not have adequate mental health care to all of our citizens.
But I think what's most important, and Aaron, thank you for helping us understand Dan McCready. But I think that pinpoints,
because nobody else can.
no, I don't want to say this facetiously, because it always comes across as me saying it like that.
Yeah.
I think this highlights the Dan McCready campaign. His supporters have to tell us where he stands, because he doesn't. And if Dan McCready, if this were a job interview, your mom can't come in and say,
he's good,
hire my son because he does, and I'm not trying to be funny, I'm trying to be very serious. No other person can apply for a job and have other people tell people why they should be hired. They should be saying, if that is what Dan McCready feels, which I believe he does feel that way, and I'm sure he has said that in front of his supporters at one of his events, then why didn't he say on his post, when he had the spotlight showing him, I believe we need to close the loopholes. All he said was, Laura and I are sorry about what happened in Dayton. Didn't mention El Paso. In Dayton, and we believe in gun sense, this. That's all he said.
I know, but that's why it's so foolish for
It
politicians to step into this breach before all the facts are out, before we know anything.
So what I'm saying
express this
I like
fake sympathy.
I
It's
like
ridiculous.
Yeah.
She's telling you it's on his website. So
Okay, no, that's fine. No, that's fine. But that's something that Dan McCready's job is to get elected. Dan McCready's job is to share his message out to individuals.
His job is to
Dan
campaign.
McCready's-
His job is to show up and talk to
Sure.
Alan and I on August 13th, where he's got
if that
his
is what
open
Dan
invitation.
McCready feels, because words matter. He can say on his website, gays should be treated equally. But if he doesn't show up for Pride, if he doesn't meet with LGBT people, if he doesn't say transgender people should be he would vote against transgender people being banned from the military, his actions say that he's anti-LGBT. So you can say whatever you want to on a website, but it's what you say to us in these meetings, because that's what I'm saying, is that it's a job that you're applying. He has no legislative background, so all we can base how he will vote is what we hear from him. And when he doesn't say anything, and this is once again, Dan Bishop is telling us, and I don't agree with 100%, 99% of what Dan Bishop, but he's telling us where he stands. You're telling us where you stand. You're telling us where you stand. Dan McCready's making us guess where he stands. And in politics, if you have to guess, you're probably losing. And that's my whole point, is that I don't understand why you can't just say that in person.
Well, there are a couple things too.
Yeah.
One, first of all, Tera's a role model for how you should run for office.
Yeah.
She spent
Goes to the events.
better part of a year, or I don't even know how long you've been going to these events
over a year and a half.
longer than I've lived in Charlotte.
Pounding the pavement.
Pounding the pavement.
And I will tell you, I don't believe that the woman sleeps. I do believe that she's a vampire, but with that, she never really goes coffee. She just is up all night, and like she is driving to somewhere.
I've got good friends who are vampires.
Yeah, like I mean, there can't. She must be buying tires all the time. But also too, I've been in marketing and sales off and on for over 20 years, and there's two things about sales that's very similar to politician. They want to know that your product's real, and they want to know that you're real.
Yeah.
And you can't know that somebody's tangible and real if you never get to see them, if you don't show up in the spaces where they exist. And I think that's Christian's whole point, is that if you don't see them, if you don't connect with them, then you got to go with the devil you know.
Yeah.
And so the politicians that do take a stand and do make appearances, I'll use Trump as a prime example. Unfortunately, Hillary was very vague on a lot of stuff that she stood on. I voted for her. I love her. I support her. I think she would have been a fabulous president. But she didn't take a stand on a lot of things. She was very vanilla in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And whereas Trump, you knew where he stood.
Yeah.
You might not agree with it.
And there are people.
And one of his appeals is that John Wayne, rough and tough, bold American individualism, and when they see that, they're like, that's our guy.
That's
And Tera's the same way when she comes in a room, because she goes to so many events. People know where she stands,
Yes.
whether they agree with her or not, whether they believe in Medicare for all. We know Tera.
Medicare for all.
She might as well have it tattooed on her forehead, because we know where she stands on this issue, and it's her passion and one to live by that and die by that.
I think North
it's
Carolina
beautiful.
voters appreciate that remark, because I think Alan and I are trying to live by that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Let's call it the Jesse Helms rule. You might not like it,
Yeah.
but at least you know where he
And,
stands.
that is one of the things.
Why
that
stay in Congress for 60 years?
60 years, yeah.
No,
there you go.
and I thank you, because I know you. I know where your stance is on guns and gun sense, but like I keep saying, at least you have the courtesy to attend a Moms of an Action meeting.
And
I
don't assume
appreciate
that I'm anti-common
No,
sense.
I don't
because
believe you are. And
yeah.
you were able to
Yeah.
listen to Shannon and listen to her
Yeah.
Be Smart program, and that's what I'm saying is that
I
may not
hardly anything.
I
to
may not
object to
agree
in
with
her-
Dan Bishop. I probably don't agree with 99%, but I make an effort to go to the Mecklenburg County GOP events. I want to hear what they have to say, and that's what you call reaching across. Dan McCready says he wants to reach across the aisle, wants to do this, but he doesn't attend anything. So how can you reach across the aisle when you
There's
don't
no
even
aisle.
attend? There's no Second Amendment. But everyone's going to make a decision who they're going to vote for.
Okay.
And
It's your turn.
I do hope everyone votes. We're going to talk about Constitutional Quote of the Week, because we have gone over like 7 minutes.
Whose fault is that?
She warned
Jenny's-
you. You should have listened to her warning.
Jenny, would you mind
I
reading
can
the
read
Second
it.
Amendment?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, speak up and make
Yes.
sure you point.
Okay.
Yeah, you may want to look at this.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
So, as long as we're all clear on this infringement bit, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Taking my guns! Taking my guns away! Taking my guns! Listen, this is a great conversation, and I want to thank everyone for being here, and thank you for coming and sitting in the back.
You're on a pedestal.
You know, and once again, I thank both of you so much for running for office as third-party candidates, because without what you have been saying, our two major party candidates would not be talking about some of the issues. I can tell you that on both sides, and you know, you talk about protecting the First, Second, and Third Amendments for freedoms and stuff like that, and I appreciate you talking about that. Green New Deal and some other things that you're talking, Medicare for all, I appreciate you talking about that. I do hope that, I do know that those two major party, even though they don't want to mention your names, they act like you don't even exist, which I think is kind of childish.
Yeah.
I do thank y'all for what you're doing, because that's really what democracy is about. And anyone who says it's a wasted vote if you vote for a third party person or whatever, I say, well, that's very white of you to tell me what my vote is wasted or not. And it's, you know, I mean, no one has the right to say that. And if they do say that, you know,
Our democracy
bless
is
your
protesting.
heart.
That's
Yeah,
right.
because
If you're protesting, you're not participating.
that's right.
And I'll say the only wasted vote is the one that doesn't get cast. And in the 2018 election, there were a lot of those.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you really think about the numbers, this is going to be a very low turnout.
Yeah.
You know, how many votes are probably going to get? What, 20,000, if that? I don't even know if it's going to be that high. 30,000, or what are they
Well,
expecting?
no, during the general, I think it was what, 280,000?
It was around
Yeah.
280.
Yeah, but we're
Yeah.
looking at maybe 10% of that, right? So we're looking at,
Uh,
it's a very, very low turnout. It'll be a very, very low turnout.
I thought they said between 10 and 30.
Yeah, so there's not going to be that many people who are going to be voting.
yeah.
You could actually, people say, I've been reading
Yeah,
the trolls.
yeah.
You have no chance.
No chance to get out of the
Get
race.
out of the race.
If you want to do what's good for America, you'll just go
get
home
out of
and
the
shut
race.
up.
You're a wasted vote. You're a wasted vote. You know what? Their job is to try to get people to vote for the people they support.
I know.
And
Al and I compare notes about the hate mail and hate troll we
yeah,
get. So.
and I just, everyone votes for who they think is important, because how you vote on this election determines the type of candidates we're going to get in 3 months.
That's right.
Because whoever wins, you got to refile again in December, which is in 3 months, and we start all over again.
That's right.
And if you guys can pool votes for whatever the issue is, whether it's gun sense, whether it's Medicare for all, whether it's LGBT rights, what issue is, the 2020 candidates will be running on those issues.
That's right.
Just like we're running for Medicare for all, because Bernie had the impact in 2016.
That's right.
So it's not a wasted vote.
If we can't force them to change by running as candidates on issues that are important to voters, then the Republic is lost.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thank you for everything you do, and I want to thank everyone for watching us. This has been very support Pride. We'll see you on Saturday for the wonderful stuff. Now the time.
Come by the booth, get your fan.
Now is the time we go around and you tell us where you're going to be. And this, I think, was a positive show.
Yeah.
Right? We try to keep the shows positive for the last couple of weeks. We don't get very good ratings when we're positive, but we still.
Next week we're going to have a fight to the death.
All right, I want to come back. I'm always ready to fight with you.
Sirens are going to go off. Psycho.
We've had a few battles.
Yeah.
Alexa, play Pandora. All right, Jenny, you start off with where you're going to be.
And keep the list short. We know just everywhere.
I'm going to be at Pride all week in some event or another, but the most important one for me in the immediate future is Saturday. Woo!
Big community event for me Thursday up in Winston-Salem. Continuing working with people that need organizational help. And then I'm going to go to Pride Saturday.
So Friday morning, I'll be with Jeff at Julia's Books and Cafe. We're going to be chatting about the issues, and we may have a knockdown, drag-out fight this Friday.
I'm going to be wearing a helmet and gloves because he's like brass knuckles. I wasn't really, it's really terrible. But yeah, we're going to be there Friday. We're going to talk about whether we're going to be in Fayetteville on Sunday. There's a campaign about in Sunday where the two Dans won't show up. Thank God, no one wants to listen to them anyway. But you can listen to Alan and I.
But Jeff, what you said is very important, because I understand that the people who are supporting Dan McCready, what they're saying is Dan has had a lot of events. He has had a lot of events.
That's true.
But there is a difference between having your own event and attending other people's events.
That's right.
Because when you have your event, it's a controlled event.
That's right. So let me just repeat what you said for people who didn't hear it. So the guy that we're running against, Gomer Pyle, only speaks to supporters. He speaks to supporters and he takes softball questions. He doesn't speak in an adversarial environment. Golly!
I did not call Dan McCready Gomer Pyle. Put that on the record. He's too cute to be Gomer Pyle.
And this is why I get in trouble for calling them my friends. All right, there's a candidate forum that my friends from the United Indian Community Forum and Latin American Coalition and the Carolina Asian American Chamber of Commerce is hosting August 9th.
Friday.
6 to 8. It's at the Midwood International and Cultural Center.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm also going to be supporting my LGBTQ community the next 2 weeks, because that's super important as well.
Excellent.
Okay, she's going to be attending the Ed Driggs, Coffee with Ed Driggs.
Oh,
Friday
excellent.
morning. So
Okay.
you'll be there.
That's great.
I'll be there.
Yep. You'll be there.
See you there.
Remember, I keep my lips sealed when I'm at Ed Driggs meeting.
Well, I want to thank everyone. Please, if you look on our feed, Scarlett had sent a number that you can text to get information about Moms About Action. If it's so important to it's a really good nonpartisan group. Education. I wouldn't support them if they were not about education. They have a wonderful Be Smart program it's not about taking guns away, it's about being smart gun owners and so forth. So please follow them, attend their meetings. They have a new chapter in Union County. It's very, very educational, so please support them. I encourage candidates to attend them as well, where just to get educated, just to hear what other people have to say. And so I will be fishing this weekend again, and then I'm going to the candidate forum at the Latin America International House, and then also to the burlesque show. So I think that's it for all of us.
Great.
Is that right?
Thank you.
And just we miss Ruth today.
Bye.
Yes.
Miss you, Ruth.
Bye.
Air to Ruth. Air